Well, Wes, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Dude, so I mean, I've read your I think your original book, but you've written two other books since, become kind of the product-led growth king, I guess, if I could say that. Certainly an expert, kind of went all in on it many years ago, and it's got its own like hype cycle. I think for a bit there with Dropbox and a few of these others, Slack, like everybody wanted to do PLG. I think these days there's fortunately like a bit more of an understanding of PLG is not for everything, it's not for everyone, but I don't think it's still like well understood, when PLG makes sense, who it's really for, or what part of your product it can make sense with, and then like how to apply it and these sort of things. So that's like really what I want to go into with you today is just understanding PLG and then just using as many examples as possible to really get tactical on, okay, like if there, what part of your product or startup could you use PLG for and how to do it.
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I call it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is product market fit.
Think back to the last like few months, the last few years as you've been running the startup. How many different founders have helped you out? The reality is founders help each other out. That's just who founders are. They pay it forward. So help a founder out. Take literally 5 seconds, take your phone out of your pocket and hit 5 stars.
Yeah, no, happy to go through it. And I guess for like a high level, very quick version of what it is for everybody too, part of that growth is when you use your product to essentially help people understand, like, what the heck do you do? What does that look like? Do they like it? And do they want to eventually purchase it? So if you use like cologne or perfume at an airport, I love that example because I'm like, you can smell it, give it a sniff, and like, I love this. Or like, oh God, like, I'm so glad I didn't wear that. Then I would smell like that for hours. And so the best products create those experiences where, you can actually see that value for what it is, if you like it or not. And to really get it right, it does have to have that like impact moment of there was life before ChatGPT as an example and life after that free motion. And it doesn't always have to be that impactful, but you get the point. And because you've been so close to it for so many years now, like what do you think happened where everybody, like, because I just remember this a few years ago, like everybody wanted to do PLG, like just PLG, how are you going to go to market? PLG, right? That was just like, what was happening at that point? What were people like getting wrong or just not fully like understanding? Yeah, I mean, there's like so many hype cycles. And unfortunately, whenever there is a hype cycle, that some people get into it for the wrong reasons too. Like, oh, I'm going to get a higher valuation from VC because we're product led now. I have had those conversations. I'm like, okay, how is this impactful for your strategy? How we're going to win as a business? So yeah, there's a lot of companies that get into that, but now it's great to actually see it kind of like reset some expectations. People have tried a lot and they've realized, oh, there's actually a lot more to this. For instance, one of the like viral-ish tweets that got reposted a bunch was like, product that grows is just like an effing free trial. That's all it is. And it was kind of funny. Like that's what a lot of people thought it was. It's just a free trial. But in order to do that, oh my goodness, is it ever a lot more than that? It's like, oh, we got to figure out onboarding. We got to figure out pricing and we got to figure out, a great free offer that people want. We got to figure out what do we give away for free? Who is this targeting? So there was just so much more to it than people initially did. It was like that classic like iceberg. You just see the free trial at the top and then you hit it head on. And a lot of people have done that, but now we're finally realizing, okay, there's actually like a bit of a science to this. And what are the 9 key steps and components that you need to get right in order to make product-led work? Yeah, well, let's go through that because I agree. I think what happened is people saw Dropbox or Slack and they're like, oh, like, you mean I don't have to like sell anything? People just like use my thing, pay me, pay me for it, share with their friends. Like that's awesome. I can have 2 employees and 10 million AR. That's right. Sign me exactly. Yeah. Let's go. Maybe that's the first question. Like we can go through your 9 steps. One of my top questions is just like, how should you as a founder think about, can I use PLG, for my business? Like what do you have to think through? Yeah. Oh, there's so many good like potential rabbit holes we could go down here. One is also like, what kind of market are you in? This is a very important question. So if you're in a very competitive, let's say cutthroat market, like let's say we want to introduce a new product in the live chat widget space, like, for your website, you're like, oh yeah, Drift or Intercom or something like that. It's very competitive. There's hundreds of solutions that do that. And so what is the best go-to-market motion if you want to win in that space? Knowing that customer acquisition costs are quite high, it's very competitive. It's like you want the best, most efficient go-to-market motion. I hope. I wish that on you. So it's like, what is the most efficient one? Hey, it's product-led. What do you know? So don't necessarily go the sales effort unless you're like, oh, we're just targeting these Fortune 500 companies that has this very intricate need with live chat solutions. And because of that, our whole go-to-market motion is very different. If that's the case, it's like, hey, you can still make it work. But the second question to ask yourself is, who are you targeting? Is it, the top dog in the company, the big decision maker, or is it somebody who's just using it and you're trying to go for, all, let's say, small, medium-sized businesses that could potentially use this? If it's the later with all small S&P companies, great. Hey, you know what? That could be a great fit. Another example on our product-led podcast, I had David, who's the founder of Hotjar. And what he mentioned, he's like, yeah, you know what? We're trying to democratize what we're doing. That was really important to them. They wanted to give you like user recordings for your website to see what people are doing on your website for under $50 per month. And so that was like a key part of their mission. Now, in order to support people to do that, how are you going to make that happen? It's like, I'm not going to handhold you every single person to go through for something that's just $50 per month. It's unrealistic. So that's not like the extensive list of questions we could go through, but those three, like understanding what market you're in, who you're targeting, and also just like what makes the most sense for your business are really, really helpful to just break down, is this right for you? But just to kind of wrap it all up, the market wants it. Like when I wrote the product-led playbook, I did a ton of research to see like, okay, 97% of people want to try before they buy versus 3% just want to talk to sales. So it's like, what do people want?
I don't know who that 3%
Give
is.
them what
by
they
the way.
want.
That's crazy.
Who people want? Give them what they want. It's not rocket science.
But I think, one of the questions I have is, what about when it comes to like complexity of use? Because I see a lot of B2B, I'm thinking about my own portfolio, right, of companies I work with. And I'm like, one of the challenges when we think about PLG for them is the onboarding piece. Like it's not, again, Slack or Dropbox being the easy examples. Like everybody knows how to, message. Everybody knows, put a storage here, like you save a file effectively. Like very easy, zero learning needed. But when you need some amount of training on how to use the product, how do you get PLG as part of that equation?
I'll give you a couple of fun examples. So one of them is our client Powbox. So they make like really easy to make your Gmail or your Outlook completely HIPAA compliant. And, mental health professionals love that because they can just keep using what they're using. However, there's this little caveat, which is in order to start using it and installing Powbox on your Gmail or Microsoft Outlook, you got to go to like your G Suite admin, domain registrar, and you got to change your DKIM, your like all these other random things that mental health professionals like, kill me. It's really hard to do for some people that are not technical. And so what they did is they had a bit of a hybrid motion. And we kind of did this in their onboarding where as soon as they signed up, it's like, hey, listen, do you want us to set this up for you? Or do you want to, do this yourself? And so if they said, hey, I would love some help setting this up, Calendly link, here you go, let's get it set up with us. And once they were connected, the churn was fantastic. Despite it being like a $29 per month plan, it's still, the economics still made sense because once they, like your email service, like how often do you change that? Unless you go to a business, you're good. So that was fantastic for them. But the other question I would kind of dig into a bit more when you're saying, okay, we have this complex use case versus it's not just like a simple Dropbox upload and, no learning curve. It's a good question when you're thinking like, is PLG right for you or not? And I would reframe it as, are you solving for complexity in what you do as a company or simplicity? And this isn't always the case, but in most kind of generalizations like this, I find a lot of sales-led companies are fantastic at solving for complexity. they can start working with a company. And, even from the sales process, it can be very custom. It's like, oh, okay. I see you're working at this VC company. You have these specific needs. Okay, well, we have this product and we also have these couple of features here. We can connect them and actually do just that, exactly what you're trying to solve. And so they're actually doing a ton of value. And when I was talking to the folks at VMware, the salesperson is describing exactly that. He's like, part of our sales process is just combining like these products and creating this intricate custom solution. I was like, fantastic. Don't stop that. For a product-led company, it's like, that's actually your detriment sometimes, is you create something that's so complex, does so many things, and then users are like, I don't even know where to start. How do I use this? And that's why we gravitate towards more products like a Notion or like a Evernote or something that's super simple to use, like a Canva, because it does one thing and it solves for simplicity and makes it easier.
Does that mean, though, if you are that VMware, I'm thinking about a company in my portfolio, for example, where they're in the, like if you think about somebody who manages, a property manager who manages a bunch of Airbnbs, and they sell software to them to help them manage those Airbnbs. One of the challenges on onboarding is whatever they're using today, they've got like the information about the pictures, the rules, wherever all that stuff is stored. And let's say they have 50 of these Airbnbs, they've got to effectively get it into this system. And they also create kind of different kind of if this then that workflows. Like if they book through this thing, send them that. But if they book through that at night, send them this. So there's all these automations they can, build in. Today, it's sales led because it makes it easier to kind of walk them through all that, help them set things up, get them to a certain level so that then they, are happy with and start seeing the value. Does that mean like if they wanted to do, let's say PLG, do they have to think about a different segment? Do they have to build a simpler version of their product? Like, how would you approach that?
Yeah. So I would reframe the question completely. And so it's not even so much like sales led versus product led. It's just what does it actually take for people to get to success? And the way I always love to break it down is like, okay, whatever user success is. Let's say for one of our clients like keep.com, it was to really automate a lot of your core business processes. So let's take that as what success is. Now there's product gaps that we need to solve. Like, okay, how do you do that within the product? Understanding that side of things. And that should hopefully be easy, even with that other Airbnb case, should be easy to kind of like pull things from one place to the other, maybe import the CSV that you already have. But then there's the skill gap. So is there any skills that are missing from the person signing up that they need to know? So in Keep's case, they had like a relatively simple product to use, but from the skill standpoint, they had a lot of business owners that were signing up that didn't really know how to automate important processes in their business. And so whenever they paired that with a free audit where somebody from Keep would actually go through, help the business owner understand, okay, what is a core critical process in your business? Let's automate that with Keep. Their like retention was through the roof. And they saw those people just super sticky. So there's like product gap, skill gap, and then there's the knowledge gap is the third one, which is really thinking about, okay, is there something somebody doesn't know that would be really, really helpful for them to really succeed with this product? Like if you sign up for an email marketing platform and you have like 0 to 100 subscribers and they're like, oh, okay, you really don't know how to get much subscribers, do you? And so okay, here's how to get to your first 1,000 subscribers. Here's the free course. Here's everything you need to do that. We broke it down into a 30-day challenge so you can 10x the number of subscribers so you get more subscribers. Fantastic. Now, the reason I wanted to like zoom out there and go with that analogy, I call it like the cake analogy of like the product layer, the skill layer, the knowledge layer, is because every product has a different variety of that. Like the Keep example, it's a little bit more on the skill side. In that Airbnb example, it might actually be the product side that's quite a big gap for people to go through, set up on their own. Hence, they need like the human support to actually subset that, because that's the way I always look at the equation of, okay, what are they missing? Is it the skills? Is it the knowledge? Is it the product piece? And okay, if it's the product piece, let's make that easier. How do we make that easier? Sometimes it's people initially. And then it's like, oh, okay, we do that for people all the time. And now we use AI to do like 98% of that. Now we just approve a couple things at the back end. We're good to go. That's how I deconstruct it to think about how do we do that.
So let's say it's the product piece. Does that mean you just let people, start using the product, but then you have ways to identify, who's failing and who's not, and you kind of jump in versus, I mean, today it'd be more like you go like classic, you go to the website, boom, book a demo, right? Like that's the motion today. But would the idea be, potentially, and I'm picking on them just because it's top of mind for me, but feel free to use a different example, like where you just switch that to, hey, start using it today, and then the people that kind of get stuck, you just have a way of monitoring it and kind of jumping in, and they can choose to kind of book, let's say, an onboarding, but they don't have to.
Yeah, no, you can absolutely do that. So one of the companies I was actually signing up for it is called databox.com. And so they make it easy to kind of like visualize your dashboards, graphics, well, not graphics, but scorecards for your business, all that stuff. And I was trying to create this like custom metric for product led. And I didn't really know how to do that. And it was just like about to leave. I was kind of frustrated, like, I can't really figure that out, feel dumb. And then boom, pop up, hey, would you like to set up this custom metric with you? It's like, oh, cool. Book a meeting, done. And because of that, is like, okay, it was much easier to decide to upgrade because I was like, hey, it does exactly what I wanted to do now. It's custom. I made it my own. Feels special. Let's use this scorecard. And so that's a great thing. But on the back end, what I just learned, we had their head of customer support on one of our webinars recently. And he's like, actually, we have all these BDRs. They're looking at who's using our product and who's struggling. And they're manually reaching out to these people. They're doing just that. They're like helping people. Some of it's automated based on, okay, they have that aggressive, clicking and stuff like that. And they just prompted it like, hey, can we help you here? But that's what it should be at the end of the day. Is like, I think the beauty of a product-led motion is it's automated everywhere where you need for the majority of users, but wherever they're getting stuck, wherever there's a ton of friction, you're filling in those gaps for the people so that they can overcome the hurdle. Because you think of like the bridge. It's like user success is on this side, they're here. And if you only have like the road for like half of it, it's like, of course, they're not going to be successful. So let's help them out however we can in that area.
Do founders ever worry about like how opening up this PLG motion could affect like their stats? I think about that from the context of, again, this, like, one of the things that might happen is like, typical sales led, you have effectively, you qualify, right? So you have that call, like, and if they're too small, they have a couple of MVPs, they might even tell them, listen, like, you can do it, but, here's why, maybe you want to do it your own way. And it helps them in a sense because, controls the number of customers they have. It makes sure that there's a fit, that the retention is going to be in a certain place, that the expansion opportunities are going to be in a certain place, that they're not going to be doing all this work for, very small customers. With product led, obviously the gates are kind of open. And so now all of a sudden anybody can start using it. And, maybe there's is that something you ever see, or how do you deal with that? That there's a worry that all of a sudden you're going to get customers that you don't really want, but now they're using a product and they're going to say bad things about your product if you don't find a way to get into success.
That's a common objection for like a lot of people that are thinking about like going through with the product motion. Like usually it's they just say, oh, I don't want like freeloaders, or, oh, like I can't possibly open this up for my competitors to see that. Like they would catch up in a fraction of the time that it took us to develop this unique feature. And so, yeah, also like with churn and everything, oh, it's going to like mess up our stats. We're going to have a lot of free users and it's going to be very expensive for us to go through. So it all comes down to, what's your strategy? How are you planning on winning in your space? If you're Canva and you're like, I'm kind of worried, they're not going to be the right people signing up, and it's like, maybe that's not the right go-to-market motion for you, because it won't work that way. If you're like manually approving, okay, you can use the product. You got a Gmail. Sorry, you can't. And everything else. But that is part of the culture of a product-led company that is very different than a sales-led company. Transparency has to really be an important value of a product-led founder that is founding that company, because, hey, listen, like, you're just open book. Like, we are who we are. This is our product, and we're getting better and better, but we might not be perfect. We definitely are not perfect. Simplicity is usually another core value, whereas like, we don't try and overcomplicate things, because if we did, this whole business model wouldn't work that well, would it? So those are some things where I would just take with a grain of salt. It's like, it depends what you're trying to optimize for, but there is trade-off, and that is totally one of them. You will have smaller APV than your typical sales-led counterparts, just because actually you do kind of need that when it comes to getting people to sign up for that first plan. Usually that can't be a huge jump to like multiple thousands of dollars without having a call. So, but you can grow them to just as big, if not bigger, than sales-led contracts too.
Can you walk me through one of your favorite case studies, kind of like end to end, with numbers, kind of before and after, and how the product led, adding kind of PLG to their whatever motion they had changed things for them?
So do you want like a sales led or product led one, or just like pure product led play?
Let's do a sales to PLG one.
Yeah, those ones are always fun because the transition it can take a really long time. And I was trying to think of like a recent one here too. Like I can't name names just for confidentiality for this specific client, but like it's over a $4 billion company, and they're like, okay, we want to go sales led to product led, but they had a CEO that was like, hey, you know what? This is going to be like, we need to have like a $50 per month plan. We need something people can get started with, see what this product is, what it's all about. Then they hired this
high level. What space are they in? Like without getting too specific, but like,
oh yeah, it was like the iPaaS space. So like you think of like Zapier, but automating like really big business processes for your company, more like enterprise focused. And so yeah, that was kind of the main focus for them. And they hired this head of PLG, and they were like, okay, we need to figure out how to actually do this. And we started working with them at that stage where they were just going through the very early stage, like what is our overall strategy? What does this look like for our business? How is this key to how we're going to win? Because you might have one key C-level leader that's bought into this, but it's really important to get everybody else aligned. That's why we go through your strategy first. Like, how does this connect to how we're going to win? Does this help us with our core modes of like, how are we going to be more hard to copy? Is it because we have a better user experience? Is it because, where people can start for free? Or it's just a, low to get started kind of price plan that really positions you as the best company to get started with. Whatever the goal is, just be intentional of like, how is this PLG motion going to really connect with that? So once you get everybody bought in, that usually unlocks a ton of resources, the rest of the team. But then you got to get clear on like, who is the ideal user for this product? And that's different than what they're used to. Because in a sales like company, it's usually like, yep, our ideal buyer is this decision maker and whatnot. But they're like, oh, ideal user, that's new. Who is the person going to use this product? That's interesting, because this is where they start to realize, oh, the marketing needs to change too. Who we're targeting also needs to change. So it's a great question for anybody to just go through. Who is that ideal user? What's success look like for them? What are their challenges? Which can also include getting that decision maker to make a decision about this. But yeah, you map that all out. And what that essentially allows you to do is map out, what is your free model? What does that look like? Because you know this ideal user, what their goal is, then you can map out like, hey, you know what? To get to that specific first value, what are all the challenges? What are the things they need to do? And then I just stack up all the like 4 or 5 core challenges. And I'm like, what could we give away to solve that? What does that look like? And it's really a fun kind of exercise. It's not really talking at all about like, is it a free trial? Is it a freemium model? Is it a reverse trial? It's like, listen, we want to get them to this point in their like user journey where they feel really good about themselves. What is that going to take? And so you just simply brainstorm, go through that whole process, and usually come up with something really, really fun. And you're like, how long do they need to do that? Oh, okay, 14 days is unrealistic. Yeah, like most companies. But they always start with 14-day free trial. That's the most common one, especially in the transition from sales led to product led. So you get the model right. And then it's all about...
So, and usually you find, so it's a lot longer. It's usually a lot longer than 14 days that you need people to kind of use something for free to get to value.
Totally. And like in a lot of cases, like for other companies too, there's like, is it in their control 100% of the journey to do that? So for instance, with like app queues or user flow or like any product adoption tool, you could have a 14-day trial and the product manager signs up, who is the user. They got that part right. But then to actually put the code in their application, they got to go through the development. And the development has like their own little cycles. So yeah, it could take for enterprises like a quarter to actually launch that inside the product. And so that's where you run into problems where you're like, actually, a usage-based model would be better, right? You're like, yeah, they would need that. So we explore like the full spectrum, like what are all the other kind of models? There's a lot more than just the free trial freemium. And then once you get that right, this is all about phase 2, which is like unlocking self-serve customers. So you go through like, what is your core offer? And that's usually like a landing page that talks about, okay, this free model, this is who it's for. And then you guide people to the onboarding. So we have like a couple of fun frameworks. I could go through them if you want for onboarding, but that is just...
Onboarding is a huge, I find it's a huge area of friction, honestly, for most early stage startups. So yeah, it would be great to dive into that.
Sure. Yeah. So the framework we always go through, it's called the bowling alley framework. If you Google it, you can get like the full write up on that. But that framework, just like in bowling, you think of like, what's the point of bowling? It's like, oh, it's to like knock down as many pins as possible. So I always focus on what is your first strike in your product. Like every product, you got to know what that is. And if you're like talking to founders, like, if you don't know what the first strike is, that's a problem if you're product led, because the whole like first time user experience, if you don't know what that is, you don't get people towards it, they won't come back a second time most often. So got to understand what is that first point in value for them. So that's what we, in that case study, like we go through, we help people understand what that looks like. But then there's 3 steps to roll out the bowling alley framework after this. You then, even this is the fun part, I got all the teams, so everybody in the room to basically break up into like groups of 2 and decide, okay, you got to find the fastest path to get to this first strike. And so everybody gets super competitive. They're like, oh, okay, yes, I know the fast path to this first strike, or they know the fast path. And I'm like, and map out everything. So the other person that's watching the other person in that pair of 2, they write down everything, like first name is a step. Last name, it's a step. So you go through all of that. And then we kind of present, okay, how many steps do you got? All that stuff. We see like, okay, this person's got like 75, this person's 30. You're like, whoa, okay. So let's start with a 31. Let's go through that example. And then we just triage everything. So like green, it's a must-have step. You got to keep that. It's like critical to doing that first strike. Yellow is like, you could totally delay that thing. Red is like, just axe it. It won't impact anything. And just from that activity alone, you usually shave off 30 to 50% of steps. So it's like crazy amount of like how much faster it is to get to value. And then the bumpers is the next part where it's like, how do we just make this really, really simple? So you're usually left with, let's say, like 20 steps. So 20 steps to the first strike. Ideally, we get that down eventually, but that's what it is right now. And now is when we can use product bumpers. Just like in bowling, we can make it really easy to strike out. And it's kind of like cheating, but for your product. And the only benefit of this kind of cheating is more successful users and more money. So this is a great kind of cheat.
What is an example of bumpers?
Glad you asked. Checklists, onboarding checklists, could be onboarding tooltips, where if you've ever like clicked on something, it's like, hey, check this out. And so those are like really good kind of examples. I do see a lot of people abusing those tooltips, but if you use it like this, that straight line, you have those 20 steps, you're just guiding people through those 20 steps to get to that first strike. So there's no point in the journey where they're like, I wonder what I should do. It's like, just click the button. You go through the next
And you've
step.
got to do it. I mean, you mentioned abusing it, like, because the flip side is there's nothing I hate more than opening up any product and it's just like skip. Like it just suggests like, here's this thing, here's that thing. I'm like, I don't care. Like just get through it all. And then, potentially later I'm like, wow, wait, I don't know how to use this product. But it's like, I'm also not going to just take 15 minutes to learn every single button on this interface. Not interesting.
And that's always like where I see it's been abused a ton, where it's like, hey, like here's this like contact details, here's this thing. You're like, okay, I've explored your entire product and I have not done that first strike. So that's why we want to be very clear, like even on that offer, the sign up page, everything's talked about. This is the first strike you're going to get. This is the first strike. Okay, 5 steps left to the first strike. And it's all guided, no other fluff. So you get the product bumpers. That's important. Then the second step is you should know people are going to drop off at some point throughout this whole process. So we always want to bring them back onto the straight line. And so if people have like, let's say they just get stuck on step 2 or step 4, you have emails, texts, anything else, they will just drive them back, be like, hey, Pablo, I saw you signed up and you got stuck at the email confirmation step. Here's the link to reactivate your email. And this will take you right into the onboarding so you can experience that first strike. And so it's really helpful. And these can be largely automated at scale, but eventually for the first time you roll this out, it can be completely manual as you understand like, okay, what should we write for those emails? What does that look like? What works? What doesn't work? And that's the bowling alley framework. Like even if you just did that one thing from this podcast, listening to it, that would help you improve your free to paid conversion rate substantially. And so, yeah, thanks.
And that goes beyond PLG because you could do onboarding and sales led is still like a challenge.
Yeah, for customer onboarding, that is actually like one of the best places to start this when it comes to like how do you roll out PLG, build confidence. It's like, oh, let's just start, using the product to onboard people a bit faster. And it works just as well.
When you mentioned before, like free trials, freemium, reverse trial, I think you said like, how do you think about what the right model is?
So the first part is it all comes down to how well do you understand your user and how have you like understood what does that user journey look like? And so I'll give you an example when I was at Vidyard, since that's a fun product to kind of dissect. They're a video marketing analytics platform at their core when I was there. Now they definitely make it a ton more easy to do video for sales, but at that time that's exactly what they were. So when you think about like what is user success for them, it's creating videos. So you got to make it easy to create videos and you want to understand who's watching those videos. And now the final kind of part of that value prop is really making sure you're like getting a great return on those videos. So if you send it to prospects, they're converting at higher rates and you can prove that. And so think about like those 3 things. That's what user success is. Now, if we chunk this down into like a really oversimplified user journey, there's the beginner problem of, you know what? You don't have a video. Oh, okay. So like we should probably make it easy to make a video, right? Of course. That's your free thing. Now, the intermediate problem, once you have the videos is, well, wouldn't it be interesting to know if Pablo watched the full video or did he just watch, 100% of the video? What does that look like? I'm getting kind of creepy here, but it would be good to know that, wouldn't it? Especially if it was a prospect. And so that's like, okay, you can upgrade to understand who's watching your videos and get some good intelligence on that. And then like the advanced problem here is, well, you have a big team and you send a lot of videos out to a ton of people. Wouldn't it be great to see what kind of impact that has on your pipeline, if it actually accelerates deal flow and everything else? And so now we get into like the really nerdy stuff of it. This is an advanced problem. Okay, this is also the more expensive plan we have, actually the most expensive one we have. But you can see there's a clear progression. It goes from beginner to intermediate to advanced. And every time I work with, especially sales-led companies going from sales-led to product-led, it always is an issue of like, they just try and slap on the free trial on an intermediate problem. And then they're like, this PLG thing doesn't work. And it's like, wow, okay, it's really hard to go from 0 to 10. You just take people from 0 to 1. What is that first thing that people need to go through?
Because typically, like in those cases, they don't even have that super simple product. I imagine if it's sales led.
Yeah, like that was exactly the problem at Vidyard. Like they had that free trial for their advanced marketing analytics products, but they did not have the simple Chrome extension that was like, hey, just click this couple clicks and create a video. And so that solved that first problem. But if you don't have that, then it's really hard to get started.
So the question is almost like, how do I get a lot of my potential ICP, my broader ICP to some value? Like what's the simplest value I can get? Because if you think about a funnel, like, not everybody that's advanced has the intermediate problem, but everybody that is advanced had to create a video, right? Like it's kind of like this kind of so you have to think about what's one level up to almost the space of leads. You don't know which one of those will become intermediate or which ones become advanced, but they all have to create a video in your case. And so you think about my leads, like that's a bit higher than, let's say, my SQL. How do I create some value for them in a really simple way? So it's not just like, here's some like email marketing stuff. It's like, here's a Chrome extension and create a video. And then all of a sudden they're at least in the product.
I think like frame it as like, if you understand like, okay, everyone has this problem and it's actually very hard to solve. And that's usually like your $1 million free problem. It's like, we got to make it easy to do this specific thing. And if we do this, people are going to be flocking to us because like really hard to do without you. And how else do you create a simple video and send it to somebody else? It's like, it's clunky. I got to record Zoom. I got to like export it. I got to upload it to Drive or something. And then they got to download it. It's like, that sucks. And so if you can say that sucks with how they're currently solving this problem, you probably stumbled upon something that's very exciting, because if you can make that, 3 clicks or less to get to value, you can unlock a huge market. Like that's exactly what I was interviewing David, who founded submagic.co. They went from like 0 to 1 million in 3 months. And that was just simply like people and all these like creators on like TikTok and stuff were like creating like all these subtitles and little animations for your TikTok videos or Instagram reels and stuff like that is really hard. And so they're like 1, 2, 3 clicks or less, and you just have that done. That's an amazing unlock for a free motion and also just a product in general.
Perfect. Well, listen, we'll stop it there. I mean, maybe I'll ask one more question, which is like any other kind of, we talked a lot about moving from sales to PLG. We talked about onboarding. There's so many other things in PLG we could cover, but like any big items that you feel we didn't touch on that are typically top of mind?
I think the one thing that a lot of people don't think about till they're like really in the weeds of it, that's important to just know, is your free model and your pricing model. Think of them like brother and sister. Like they're the same thing, essentially. Like your model is what you talk about internally. Like, okay, we have this tier that's our free one. This one's our intermediate. This one's advanced. But then you got to, in the pricing component, you got to go through and understand, okay, what is the actual, what are the specifics? What are the value metrics we got to go through for each of these plans? What is the price point that makes the most sense? And you're trying to like marry them together in a way that's like, okay, this brings out a great business model. We're not giving everything away for free. We have the right tiers where it's, they get enough of that free value where they feel like, okay, this is a substantial thing. Like for instance, one of the clients I was coaching today, they're a no code website builder. And so it's just like, you know what? You have to allow them to do something and have free plan that's useful. So how many rows do they need to use with like an Airtable or something like that to actually build something cool at the end of the day? And so it's deconstructing that, finding those ideal limits, because you want people to hit them, but you don't want to hit them like way too early where they're like, whoa. I haven't created anything useful yet. And because when you find that sweet spot, then people are willing to pay way more than you ever thought for that specific product, because you showcased, hey, this is what this product does, what it's capable of. If you do that too early, then people are going to be like, yeah, maybe could you have like a $10 per month plan? Like, no, they could have paid hundreds if you got them to value first.
I always go back to like, for me, the master was Slack, because it was like, how do they find a way to like not give messaging? Like it's kind of basic, where do they really draw that line? And I always thought them cutting history was genius, because it's like, hey, you can add like, I think as many people as you want. I don't remember if it's changing, but back then, from what I remember, like you can add a lot of people, you can message, however much you want. We're not going to stop you from like the core value, but we will limit your search. And if you're a serious user, like, and you kind of are like, Slack is going to be our thing, you will hit that limit and you'll be like, okay, well, like we're already all in, like we kind of have to pay or we got to move. And most cases you tended to pay.
Yeah. And like that's finding those like ideal limits too is the finicky part. Like I was using Evernote for 8 years free. I'm the freeloader guy. Just using Evernote for like journaling and stuff over the years. And then they finally changed the free plan. It was initially unlimited free notes. They just like capped you on the devices you could use. And they give all the core value away for free, but then they capped it to like 50 free notes. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm upgrading today. Here we are. There you go, Evernote. Thanks for all the 8 years of free stuff. This is great. Yeah, finding those ideal limits, like in that case, 50 notes it's a great amount of time where I can see, okay, this is what this product does, what it's capable of. But it's not like Google Docs is completely free forever. But I can see what it can do. So finding those limits will help you see that, okay, PLG will actually work versus having, just tons of freeloaders.
Awesome. Well, Wes, thanks so much for spending the time on the show, dude. It's been awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I got a free gift for your guests too. If they want the free product-led playbook, I'm happy to give it to them.
Yeah, for sure. How can they get it?
Cool. Yeah, they could just check out productledgift.com. And if you liked anything we talked about for the product-led playbook, you get it all for free. And it's the free audiobook, since hopefully you like listening to stuff.
Awesome. Perfect. So picture this. It's months from now, years from now, and one of your founder friends, a really close founder friends of yours, guess what? Their startup went bankrupt. And it turns out if you had just shared the product market fit show with them, they would have learned everything they needed to find product market fit and to create a huge success. But instead, their startup has completely failed. You have blood on your hands. Don't let that happen. You don't want to live like that. It is terrible. So do what you need to do. Tell them about the show. Send it to them. Put it on WhatsApp. Put it on Slack. Put it where you need to put it. Just make sure they know about it and they check it out.